Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. We are in my studio at my workspace, and today I'm going to show you how to wind yarn into a yarn cake using a ball winder and a swift over here. We're going to be using an umbrella swift. There are many different kinds of swifts. Some use interchangeable pegs. I'm going to be using an umbrella swift. That's the swift I like to use. However, if you have something else, this tutorial will still help you as well. Now, when yarn, a lot of you have asked me about this. When yarn comes to you like this, it's kind of wrapped up like a pretzel. You can't just simply grab a strand and start knitting or crocheting. You have to unwind it and then rewind it into a ball. Now you can use, like we're going to be using a ball winder and swift. You can also use just the swift and put the yarn on and wind the ball by hand. Likewise, you can just use the ball winder and either have a friend hold, this will open up into a ring and you'll see that in a moment. You can have your friend hold the ring between their hands, kind of like the old-fashioned way. You can drape it around a chair and just use the ball winder. We're going to learn how to use these together. So my ball winder here, I have it clamped to the table. This is a Knit Picks ball winder, and you know, this is a one where you turn the handle. Now there are some where you just simply press a button and it winds it automatically. Now I have it clamped to the table. This also has a handle. You can mount the handle and hold it by hand and wind it as well, just like that. I like to clamp everything down and just kind of work that way. And it has this swinging arm that you'll use to kind of feed the yarn into this peg. This is where our yarn will be ultimately end up. It'll start over here and end up here. Okay, and then my swift over here is clamped to the table as well. I wanted to mention as a side note that if you want to protect your tabletop surfaces, now this is my work table, so you know I can kind of just clamp it right on there. But if you want to clamp these items to something like a fancy wood dining room table, like I like to do sometimes, just clamp it onto a different tabletop, you'll want to maybe put a little cushion in there. So this ball winder has a pad up under the clamp and under here, and this is wood. Just wood right mounted onto this work table. But if you want to protect your surface from getting, you can actually dent it or scratch it up. You'll want to maybe put a little piece of fabric in there. Flannel or fleece or felt works also very nicely. Fleece has a very nice cushion. Just make sure that it doesn't slide around, that it's securely on there, or you're going to be, as you turn this handle, it's going to be kind of moving around. So I'm going to make sure everything's nicely clamped. This umbrella swift and ball winder are both by Knit Picks, and you can find that on the Knit Picks site. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be winding some yarn. This is Billow by Knit Picks. I have this really pretty coral color. So we're going to start with the umbrella swift and get the yarn onto the umbrella swift. Then we're going to be moving over here and winding the yarn onto the ball winder. So I'm going to come over here to our umbrella swift. Now, this is called an umbrella swift because it opens just like an umbrella. So it's simply, there's a slider piece here, and it simply slides upward. And then you have another peg here. There's a peg up underneath to clamp it onto the table. And then you have a peg here that you can tighten. Now, as I mentioned before, this is one type of swift. There are other kinds out there. Some of them use pegs and such to hold the yarn on. But this tutorial will still show you how to get it onto the ball winder. Okay, so what we want to do is begin by having the swift down. Now, the yarn, see how it's twisted up? It will untwist like this, and we're going to open it up. Now it's going to make this nice, big, pretty ring that we're going to put onto the swift. Okay, I went and grabbed my scissors. You'll need some scissors because there are little pieces of yarn that are holding this on. So what we want to do first is remove the yarn label. Now this part of this process, you'll want to be very careful because you don't want to cut the wrong thing. You could cut a strand in the center of your yarn and then you won't have a continuous strand. So let's carefully remove the yarn label first, and you'll want to save that so you have the care instructions, and if you're working on a pattern. Once you get the yarn cake complete, what I like to do is kind of roll the label up and tuck it in the center. So let's put that aside for now. Next, we're going to take our yarn, and what I like to do is, see how it makes this nice pretty ring? What I like to do is kind of hook it around my umbrella like this and lay it down on the table. Now you only have two hands. This is kind of like a third hand would be helpful here. But I like to just kind of hold it like this, and then with my other hand, slide it up the Swift. Just like that. So you can see how a third hand would be helpful here. And then just get it onto the yarn Swift. Now we're not going to push it up so high that it's going to make this tight. We want it to be loose enough to work with, but tight enough so it's going to stay put. Now this wood that it's made of is pretty grippy, so it's going to hold it on there pretty good. But I like to give it a little bit of play. Okay, now you can tighten. Now let's find, we can swivel it around. You'll see your yarn has these little ties that are going to tie it together. Now some manufacturers have one, some have 3 or more. So you'll just want to kind of very carefully look around for your yarn tie to see where it's tied on. Okay, so what we're going to do is give that a snip. We're just going to cut that. And then this part you want to be really careful to just kind of pull it through. Now sometimes this little tie piece is its own separate strand from the yarn. And sometimes, like in this case it's looking like, it is actually the end and it's connected. So this is our starting piece right here. It was actually what I cut. Like I said, sometimes it can be a separate strand. So just be very, very careful during this process to not cut the wrong thing. I just want to say that from experience. That has happened to me before. Okay, so our yarn is on the Swift, and now we're ready to transfer the yarn onto our yarn ball winder and make it into a really nice yarn cake. Okay, so I repositioned the camera a little bit so we can kind of move away from the Swift now and focus more on the ball winder. So what you want to do is this strand is coming from the ball winder, and like I mentioned before, your ball winder will normally have a little arm, and you want to swing that out to where it needs to go. Different manufacturers, it might look a little bit different, so just read the instructions that came with your particular ball winder. So what we want to do is take our strand and we're going to feed it through this hole. Okay, there's a hole in here in this arm. Okay, so we're going to bring it through here, and then if you look very carefully at the top of this is the peg that the yarn will be wound onto. So there's 2 notches at the top. We're going to put our yarn on top of these notches. Now you'll want to have a decent strand. This is maybe about 8 inches or so. I like to do a little extra. It's up to you. Now I'll just kind of securely fasten it in those notches, just like that. Now we're ready to wind. Most of the time, ball winders will have an arrow. I find this arrow to be very helpful because I need to know which way to turn my handle. So we're all set up. I also like to use, when I'm winding, I like to use a guiding hand to kind of guide it to the arm as I'm winding, okay? So what we want to do is we're going to go at a steady pace. We're not going to go too fast because that's how you can very quickly make a huge mess. But we're not going to go too slow either, just kind of a nice steady pace, okay? I like to start off a little slow at first though, just to kind of get everything established. And you'll see pretty quickly how it's going to be wound on there. Okay, so I'm going to start winding. I'm going to hold my yarn up here just so you can see better, so my arm is not blocking your view. Okay, so we're going to start turning the yarn, and you want to, I like to kind of guide it a little bit as I go at first. And this arm up here that I'm holding, it also is going to give me a little bit of tension. Okay, so this strand, that's okay that that's getting covered. Okay, so we're just going to go around and see how my Swift is turning as well. So we're just going to start winding the yarn. Whoops, I'll get my arm out of the way. We're going to start winding the yarn, and my arm is providing some nice tension for the yarn cake. Okay, so see, I'm going a nice steady pace. I'm not whizzing through it, and I'm not going so slow. And that'll give us a nice tension. Just like when you knit or crochet, you want to have nice tension on the yarn. Okay, so I'm just going right along. And this isn't that big of a skein. This one had about 120 yards, so this will go pretty quickly. Now let's pause for a moment. I want to just show you what we have. We have a little tiny yarn cake, and you can see how the ball winder winds it, so it almost has like a basket weave kind of look. It looks very pretty and nice and neat and very professional. Okay, I'm going to continue winding my yarn a little bit, and once we've gotten towards the end here, we're going to rejoin, and I'm going to show you how to finish up, okay? Okay, so we just have, as you can see, just a little bit left on our umbrella. So we're just going to finish winding. Now the end can be a little bit goofy. Sometimes it'll, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to kind of keep the tension as I get to the end. And we're at the end, okay? So the next thing we want to do is we need to get it off of this, okay? And you can see how neat our yarn cake looks. Nice and neat. Just so wonderful to have a nice, neat ball of yarn. It sits flat on the table. So it's very exciting. Very exciting to me, at least, anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this. This is the end of our yarn. And what I like to do is just kind of follow the same pattern. See how it like kind of dips down, curves back up, dips down. So just find the end here, and then what you're going to do is just tuck it right in to the side there, okay? Then we're going to carefully lift it off of our ball winder, okay? So what we're going to do, I like to hold it with two hands. Now you can see this piece in the middle. Before you lift it off, go ahead and pull that up. Right, just be very careful you're not pulling the wrong thing. Okay, this will be our center pull strand that we'll start with. Now I've seen some yarn manufacturers who will put a little something here at the end to help you find it. You can take a sticker, maybe go in your kids' sticker drawer and just take a little sticker. If you've never seen this, to show you what I'm talking about, you can just take a little sticker, something symmetrical. I have a little butterfly here, and just fold it over, just like that. And then you can just snip that when you're ready to work on your project. But a lot of yarn manufacturers, actually not a lot, a few are starting to put a little marker on here, and that's so helpful if this gets mixed into your yarn stash and you kind of forget where the end is, or it gets tucked back in there. But this will help you, any yarn ball really, doesn't have to be this. Okay, so we have our starting strand here. So what you want to do is take both hands and carefully, I'm pushing with my thumbs on the center peg. I'm just going to carefully slide that out, okay? Then your yarn cake is ready to go. I like to just kind of like press it onto the table. We have a perfectly neat yarn cake, and we're ready to begin our project. When you start, you just pull from the center, and it doesn't roll. It sits nice and flat. Also, this label that we had at the end, we can roll this up like this. This is our yarn label that shows our care and gauge and all those important things, yardage. And you can just tuck that right in the center. So you have your little starting piece, you have your care label, and your yarn is all set and ready to go and ready to be your next project. All this hard work you've done winding this, I like to put mine in like a Ziploc bag. That'll keep it clean and neat and keep it from moving around and getting like smashed up against your other yarn if you keep your yarn on a shelf or in bins or something like that. So our yarn cake is complete. It looks gorgeous. I hope this helped you learn how to use a Swift and a ball winder. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again.